For Chapter 1, we'll be talking about the Texas history and politics of the state. So it's meant to be more of a brief overview rather than a detailed view of the chapter. Learning outcomes for this chapter. Explain the significance of Texas's Six Flags. Describe the Civil War and Reconstruction in Texas. Describe the post-Reconstruction Texas. The challenges facing Texas today, and explain the U.S. and Texas political cultures. Remember, political cultures defines political behavior in many ways. The flags of Texas, from Spain to statehood. Spain was the first of the modern European nations to lay claim to the territory of Texas as early as 1519. Spanish Texas included only a small part of today's state. Spanish claims were largely abandoned after surveys failed to find great treasures. France was the second to bring its flag, briefly, to the territory. France laid claim to the Mississippi River system and parts of the Spanish claims in Mexico. Fort St. Louis was established on the Texas coast, but was soon destroyed by the Karankawa Indians. When remains of Fort Lewis were discovered in 1689, Spain established missions and presidios in the eastern part of its territory. The Spanish settlers were known as Tejanos. With the U.S. purchase of the St. Louis territory in 1803, new settlement patterns emerged. Anglos were defined as non-Hispanic white North Americans of European descent, typically but not exclusively English-speaking. Spanish-Mexican relations deteriorated and Mexico declared independence in 1821. The third flag was that of the Republic of Mexico, which included what has been Spanish Texas. The impresario is a person who contracted with the Spanish or Mexican government to recruit new settlers to Texas in exchange for the ability to claim land. Revolt against Mexico began in 1835 in response to decrees limiting property rights and economic freedoms for Anglos. On March 2, 1836, the Provisional Government of Texas declared its independence. The Republic of Texas was the fourth national flag, but the Republic still had to survive the war with Mexico. Texans' forces outnumbered at the famed Battle of Alamo in 1836 fought to the death. Santa Anna was ultimately captured and forced to sign the Treaty of Velascos recognizing Texas's independence. In the aftermath of the war, the government was quickly bound by debt and struggled to meet its minimum obligations. The issue of slavery led the United States to deny a petition for statehood. From 1836 to 1945, the Republic of Texas struggled to survive. Poor relations and border disputes with Mexico and open hostilities with natives made governing Texas difficult. The Republic lacked revenue and was plagued by poor infrastructure, but it had land to offer potential settlers. An organization called Alvarine Society promoted German immigration to Texas in 1840. The idea of manifest destiny envisioned a United States stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific. In 1845, Texas regained statehood, and the U.S. flag became the fifth to fly over Texas. Texas retained its public debt and lands, forcing the U.S. to purchase all land that was being designated as federal. The state's boundaries were finally settled with the Compromise of 1850. Mexico voiced its objection to U.S. annexation and broke diplomatic relations with the United States early in 1845. In ensuing Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848, the U.S. was victorious. Within the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, along with the Gadsden Purchase, the U.S. officially gained Texas, California, and all the land in between. The Confederate State of Texas. From 1848 to 1860, settlement increased dramatically with more and more immigrants coming from the southern United States and Europe. Increasingly, Texas's economy became tied to that of the southern states and the slave system. These ties were primarily reason Texas seceded from the Union in 1861 and joined the Confederacy. The Confederate flag was therefore the sixth national flag to fly over Texas. In 1866, Texas adopted a constitution that abolished slavery, nullified secession, and canceled the state's wartime debt. African Americans had the right to vote, while whites who participated in the Civil War lost that right. The Carpetbaggers Constitution was short-lived, replaced in 1869 as a result of the Reconstruction Acts of the United States Congress and subsequent military rule. Texas formally joined the Union in 1870. Reconstruction in Texas. Southern Democrats regained control with the election of 1874, marking the beginning of one-party Democratic politics in Texas, a period that lasted close to 100 years. The new Texas Constitution, adopted in 1876, demonstrated a strong distrust for the institution of government and heavy emphasis on freedoms and liberties of citizens. Although it has changed dramatically due to hundreds of amendments, the 1876 Constitution remains the outline of our fundamental law for the state of Texas. Post-Reconstruction Texas. Land. For most of its history, the Lone Star State has had a land-based economy in which most wealth is derived from the use of land. Many early settlers were lured by offers of free land. Each family had received one sitio or legula or league, the equivalent of about 4,428 acres of land. By the 1820s, given the hardships of travel and simple survival, settlers' demands were given with generous incentives. Land also played a role in the Texas Revolution in 1836 and the annexation of Texas by the U.S. in 1845. The transformation of the Texas economy. From 1820s to 1860s, the primary use of land was the cotton farming, which dominated the Texas economy. In the years following the Civil War, cattle became Texas's economic mainstay. The giant ranches helped develop the cowboy culture and the mystique of the frontier Texas. In 1901, however, Spindletop oil field was tapped near Beaumont, and the economy and politics of the state began to change dramatically. The transformation of Texas economy. Oil sparked the transition from the agricultural economy to the industrial economy. Oil accelerated the growth of Texas's population and brought in new citizens from all over the United States and abroad looking for work. Oil accelerated the demographic shifts from a rural society to urban society. In 1900, less than 20% of Texas lived in urban areas, but this had grown to about 63% by 1950 and more than 80% by 1990. During the 1970s and early 1980s, an increase in oil prices resulted in tremendous growth. But when oil declined in the mid-80s, the state's economy followed suit. To many, the economic recession pointed to a need for more economic diversity. When Texas entered the 21st century, the economy of the state was far from more diverse. Significant features included NAFTA, new high-tech industries, and leading scientific and technological research and development. Today, the service industry dominates. The state's location, its proximity to Mexico, and its centrality within the continental United States has pushed this sector growth. Increased trade has also fueled growth in areas such as accounting and legal computer services, as well as construction, engineering, and management. Population expansion has led to marked increases in the need for healthcare and education services. Simultaneously, the rise in both trade and population has sparked the growth of leisure and hospitality industry. Texas's economical regional development. The State Comptroller's Office has divided Texas into 12 economic regions based on the dominant economic activity. To simplify discussion, these have been divided into 6 regions: East Texas or Piney Woods, the Plains region, the Gulf Coast region, the border area of South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, the Metroplex or the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and the Central Corridor or mid-state regions. Certain activities are prominent in each region. In East Texas today, timber more than agricultural or oil. Plains region, the historically agricultural and ranching, but with diversification, these are less dominant. The Gulf Coast region, petrochemicals, manufacturing, shipping, fishing, and high-tech industries. Border area of South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley are dominated by agricultural production of citrus fruits and vegetables. The Metroplex area, which is a financial center with banking, manufacturing, high-tech, and aerospace industries. The Central Corridor. These are 3 large state universities, high-tech industries, and major military bases. Demographics, the road to majority minority. Population trends reflect much about the political, social, and cultural features of a region and are important indicators for governments at all levels. Demography is a scientific study of population. Texas ranks among the 50th state not only in total land size, but also in terms of population. In 2019, population estimated that Texas showed a rapid increase of about 3.8 million residents in 9 years. With the 2010 census, Texas gained 4 additional seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. The bar graph here shows the percent changes in the population of the 15th most populous states. The United States is 6.3, Texas is about 15.3, so the growth is there. Urban and rural. While the overall population of Texas has changed, the portion living in rural areas is declining. The census data from 2010 showed 84.7% of Texas's population were living in urban areas, 15.3% in rural areas. By comparison, in 2000, 17.5% of Texas were considered rural. Over the next 40 years, urban areas are expected to continue to grow much more rapidly than rural areas. Majority-minority. Since 2004, Texas has been a majority-minority state. All racial and ethnic minority groups combined now form a majority of the population. As of 2019, non-Hispanic whites made up 41.5% of the total state population, a numerical statistical minority. According to the U.S. Census, Hispanics or Latinos accounted for 39.6%. Hispanic voters and leaders have become a major force in state politics. Also growing is the Asian American population at 5.2% in 2019, while the proportion that is African American, that is 12.8%, remains fairly constant. Surprisingly, we have, according to the 2020 census, we have one of the largest population of African Americans in the country. Challenges in Texas, recession in Texas. Texas's diverse and growth-oriented economy weathered the 2008 financial recession better than any other large state. The state has diversified and transitioned its economy to a combination of energy, agriculture, trade, and an array of professional and business services, utilities, and general services. Due in part to this diversification and its relatively business-friendly fiscal and regulatory policies, Texas both entered the recession later and emerged from it more quickly than other states. Challenges in Texas, the national issues. Education and income are perennial issues on national stage that are indelibly and incredibly linked to the state. Available figures suggest that incomes in Texas run slightly lower than the national mean and poverty rates track slightly higher than the national average. Census data suggests Texas continues to lag behind the national average in terms of its proportion of adults aged 25 or older who have graduated from high school or completed a bachelor's degree. Economically disadvantaged students fare worse. Immigration and immigration today. Immigration refers to movement into Texas from other U.S. states. Since 2010, 29% of the population growth comes from immigration. Special pushes came from the upheaval caused by Hurricane Katrina in 2005 and the home mortgage and banking implosion in 2008. Texas-specific factors included relatively inexpensive housing, an appealing natural and business climate, and high-tech jobs. California and Florida became the most likely origins. This table provides a view of migration to Texas from other states from 2018. California tops the number of states with over 86,000 people, Florida 37,000, Louisiana 29,000, followed by Oklahoma, Colorado, Missouri, and Illinois. Immigration and immigration today. Immigration. Texas continues to be attractive to immigrants, both legal and illegal, from other countries. In 2018, the U.S. admitted 160,000 plus legal immigrants from Mexico, more than any other single nation. Out of the nationwide total of 12 million unauthorized immigrants, an estimated 1.9 million live in Texas. Since the recession, however, Mexican immigrants returning to Mexico exceeded those coming into the United States. Immigration from India and China, however, are on the rise. Texas political culture. Political culture consists of attitudes, values, and beliefs that most people in the political community have about the proper role of government. The types of political culture. In the mid-1960s, Daniel Eleazar developed a system of classifying different types of political culture in the 50 states. So he came up with three. The moralistic subculture is where the government is a positive force to achieve a common good for all citizens. Individualistic subculture is the view that governments benefit the individuals rather than society in general. Traditionalistic subculture is where the government maintains the existing political order for the benefit of a small elite. So this map is a view of the political culture in the states. You can see the traditional culture is predominantly in the southern part of the United States. The individualistic culture is in the far south part or southwest part of the United States and up on the northeast part. They tend to be smaller states in the farther up northeast. The moralistic states tend to be up in the upper Midwest, Great Plains area, northwest part of the United States, much more smaller states. So across the board, a variety of cultures that shape political opinion. The attitudes and beliefs of Texas's early settlers provide some insight into the state's political culture. Mexican immigrants contributed a strong traditional culture based on Spanish culture of the time. Southern Anglo-East settlers of East Texas also brought a strong traditionalistic culture as a natural extension of the practice of slavery. African American slaves were forced to adopt traditionalistic culture of their Anglo slave owners. German and Midwestern Anglo settlers in West Texas, in search of individual opportunities, brought a strong individualistic culture. The basic structure of state government in Texas fits the traditionalistic individualistic model well. Government is relatively limited, powers divided among many elected officials, executive authority is weak, few state regulations are placed on businesses, regulation of the environment is modest. Although the name of the dominant political party has changed, the state's political culture has not. The takeaway or conclusion. Texas occupies a special position within the larger United States. A state government must contend with challenges both common to other states and unique to Texas. The state's political culture, shaped by its history and the attitudes and beliefs of earlier settlers, continues to follow and affect how its government responds. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks for listening and watching.